Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good evening. Happy Wednesday to everybody out there in YouTube land. It is your boy Louis Sports Network back at it once again with another heavy hitter banger with yet another video. Shout out to the LSN Mod Squad and to all new subscribers and just to everybody out there. Make sure you're smashing the like button. Make sure you're hitting the subscribe button. Make sure your notifications are turned on. Make sure you guys are sharing this stream on your social media outlets and on Reddit. I truly appreciate it. As you can see, I have new channel art. Make sure you guys go check that out on my channel as well. I just added that. And I know that, you know, we have a couple of guests. I know Tyree has been patiently waiting, so I see you, bro. And I will introduce you in a moment. And G Money, it should be checking in. And again, smash the like and hit that subscribe, man. Shout out to Kid Glory, first one in the building already, man. Already hitting that like. I hope you guys enjoy it. I decided to add this channel art now to the top of my channel, and I also changed my profile pic. I hope you guys enjoy it. As you can see, we got Jordan on the left, Derek Jeter to his right, because I have my love for baseball, Stone Cold Steve Austin for my love of wrestling, Conor McGregor for my love of USC, my favorite quarterback, Russell Wilson. I also do like Aaron Rodgers, but Russell Wilson is currently my favorite quarterback. Shows my love of football. But again, smash the like button, hit the subscribe as you guys come in on the Louis Sports Network. And Ryan says, yo, Louis, man, trying to fix this mess, man. I'll let you know about it later. Hopefully everything is okay. Just let me know in, via text and all that. But shout out to Ryan, man. Again, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. I want to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to Tyree. Tyree, welcome, brother. Appreciate you coming on this live stream for this. And I know this was your idea, so I have to thank you for doing this one. So how's everything with you, Tyree?
Man, everything is good, man. Appreciate you having me.
Of course, man. Of course. Anytime, anytime. And also, I'd like to also introduce G Money. G Money, welcome to the stream. How is everything with you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fine, chilling at home. Glad to do the stream with you guys.
All right, awesome. And like I said, once again, ladies and gentlemen, new channel art I just put on my channel. As you can see, the figures that I decided to put on there. Make sure to go check that out. And also, I just did a short video on it, if you guys can, to make sure to smash the like button on that one and to, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. So make sure to do that. I'll probably just share the video, but on it. So, guys, shout out to Bronco Fanatic, man. And he says he loves the cover art. Truly appreciate that. Thank you. Shout out to Michelle's daughter. Shout out to Ron already. And he said he left Amir stream. Amir, it's all good. And shout out to Amir and Sports Critic. He's doing having a wonderful conversation over there. He has a guest. The channel is the Giants Alliance. I was just on there for a little bit just to see. And he is a New York Giants fan, so he does that. And shout out to anybody like sports. I already know that that's Sly in the building. So yo to you, what is good? All right, let's come to what we came for, ladies and gentlemen. So shout out to Tyree for this idea. And he was talking about, in his personal opinion, as the topic that we were talking about. And shout out to Joel and Weiss already in the building. And like I said, appreciate everybody liking the new channel art. Appreciate that. Shout out to Karam in the building. Again, let's get the likes and views up. But I want to get started already because I thought that this was very interesting that Tyree had brought up in yesterday's live stream. And I wanted to get your guys' take on it. And we can have a nice, really extensive conversation. Shout out to Ron and Michelle's daughter once again, my Bronx sister. But so Tyree had mentioned that he feels like bigs are getting a little too much recognition in terms of being top 10 all-time greats over wings and players. And his reason was being that bigs are much more dependent when it comes to trying to receive the basketball because it has to be delivered to them. They can't really create their own shot. And he's talking about, some of the all-time greats, as we're talking about, like Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, so on and so forth. And why more wings don't get much more love on there in the top 10 because of the fact that they have it much more difficult, in his personal opinion. So I wanted to open the floor and see what you guys think about, basically Tyree's statements. And Tyree, since you are the main man who started this conversation, we will start it off with you and then go to G Money, and I'll come on the back end. So take it away, my man.
Yeah, I brought this up. I was always conflicted of why big man dominated everybody's top 10 list. Like I said yesterday, they're closer to the basket, so they have an easier opportunity to score the basket. They also dependent on the ball, and they don't have to guard a man from 90 feet on in. They have the only time they guard somebody is just within the paint restricted area. And with wings, you have sometimes with dominant wings, you have to guard your man from half court on, or sometimes 90 feet. You also have to, with the speed of the player, the athleticism, most of the time is wing players. They control the ball. They also control the tempo. And it's also difficult for a wing to score than it is for a big man to score. And I was just always conflicted why a big man gets so much love in the top 10 than a dominant wing does.
Interesting points you just made. G Money, go ahead, man.
Yeah, he's right. Like what Tyree said, big men they still guard the inside, but they don't really guard much of the perimeter anymore. And today's game, you see more big men step out, shoot threes like Karl Anthony Towns, Brooke Lopez, Marcus Gasol, and etc. Just step out and shoot the perimeter shot, while there's more athletic wings today. So I just think that big men get more recognition because now you see them had more of an outside touch today. And like what Tyree said, big men to back then used to guard the perimeter and even the interior, but now you see the big men just guard the inside.
You guys made some compelling arguments, and it's very interesting. It's funny because a lot of people who have big men on their top 10 list, and I do too. Um, Part of the reason they feel like is, you know, they say that big men are very dominant. To Tyree's point, big men dominate what? They dominate inside the paint. They're not necessarily asked to shoot perimeter jump shots, and a coach would tell you, no. Why would in if we understand the era. Um, if we understand the era, it's big men are traditionally supposed to be in the post. They should not be shooting. And if they're going to shoot jump shots, it should be anywhere from 10 feet in. They should not be shooting like 15, 17 feet jump shots. You could kind of give that more so to power forwards because they're a little bit more mid-rangey and in a sense a little bit when it comes to back then. And obviously today's big men are shooting from the perimeter now because that's what it's required because of the era that they play in. And basically, Ty's argument is basically saying that why is it that bigs are getting all this credit for being all-time greats when they only dominate in one area on the offensive end, and that's the paint, whereas wing players can score from anywhere on the floor, including post up, get to the
Mm-hmm.
basket, have the ability to handles because big men are not supposed to be known as really, ball handlers. And
Mm-hmm.
again, shout out to everybody in the chat. And let me just check in with those guys real quick before I continue. Uh, and like I said, to make sure that you guys, I put the link to my channel art video. It was really quick. Just make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe. And for those who would like to subscribe, make sure you subscribe to the channel. But to my mods and to my subscribers, if you guys would, hit the like and just let me know what you guys think of the channel art. And real quick before I continue, what do you guys think of the channel art that I, made?
I think it's great. It's so colorful. It's so unique. Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I seen it too earlier today, Lewis, and I thought it was pretty cool as well.
All right, man. Appreciate the appreciation. Thank you both. And so let me continue with my point. And again, shout out to everybody in the chat. Um, so yeah, I mean, I I put those guys on the list because of the era that they played in, and I have to give them their respect because of the numbers that they put up. But I can see the other side of the argument, and I know that Bronco Fanatic had said that it's because the bigs are more dominant. But then it goes back to Tyree's point in that they dominate. Are they dominant everywhere on the floor, or are they dominant in one particular area? Because even if you put them on the left side of the basket or the right side of the basket, it's still in the same area in the paint. So if you make them take jump shots, are they really going to be as effective? It's like what you're saying if you were to guard somebody like Shaq, and you know what he's doing is he's using his athleticism, he's using his ability to bully ball to be able to score in the paint. But that's the role of the center. The role of the center is to not shoot jumpers. Um, but I also wanted to ask, what else do you guys think in particular reason that wings should definitely be more considered as top 10 greats over NBA centers, in your personal opinions?
Maybe because certain wings have accomplished a lot today. Certain wings have carry their team to more excellence. There are some cents who deserve some recognition, but I think that certain wings have carried their team to to the promised land with certain big men have not. So yeah, like Steph Curry should get more recognition, etc. I know Russ has not done much, but Russ should get more recognition. I mean, I know James Harden's not a great playoff performer, but he should get some recognition because he's carried some of his teams far in the playoffs. Hell, Reggie Miller should get recognition for carrying the Pacers to an NBA Finals in 2000. So I think that certain wings have proven they can carry a team deep in the playoffs or finals. So I'm just saying that certain centers just shown that they can't really carry their team far, like Alonzo Mourning. He's a great player with Miami, but he just never got. He did go to a conference final in 1997, but he just never got. He never won the big game. Say through Patrick Ewing, he got us because I know Lewis and I know you and I are Knicks fans, but Pat Ewing never really got us to the promised land. So I'm just saying that wings should get more recognition because they have proven that they can carry a a team deep in the postseason.
And not just that, G Money. They also asked to do more on the court. They,
Hmm.
like you say, Lewis. They have to score in the perimeter. They have to score in the post. They have to run the offense. They have to be ready on defense. Run it. They
Hmm.
run a transition better than a big man does.
Hmm.
And also, if you put the big man, a dominant big man, and a dominant wing player, and you have them play one on one, say let's play half court, and you have the dominant big man, dominant wing man, one on one. Majority of times, the dominant wing will beat the big man, unless the big man's posting up from the half court line all the way to the post, which I doubt. But wings are all always dominant wings are always asked to do more than a dominant big man.
Very interesting. So your arguments are wings guard 94 feet, which centers don't. They're guarding the post, which I've never really seen a center pretty much guard any player in 94 feet. So you also say that wings have more responsibility in terms of the offense. And Koran made a very good point, and so did Ryan. Ryan has talked about how this era is a positionless basketball, and you have big men actually playing out of position. A lot of
Hmm.
guys are playing power forward. You even have even small forwards playing the power forward position when it comes to matchups, especially when they go small. Then you also have the fact that the wings are actually facilitating the offense more than what a big man is, even though you're running the plays to him. Because even when you run an offense through a big, the ball has to eventually still go to him because he's not running the offense. He's getting himself in deep position to where a point guard, shooting guard, or small forward is pretty much okay. So before I continue, uh, Bronco Fanatic wants to know what position is a wing. Okay, so wings are small forwards and they're shooting guards. So the wings are basically two positions. Shooting guards' job is to shoot, obviously, and score, and small forward is really more so as the more versatile position of the wing position. So that's what it is. Small forward and shooting guard is known as the wing position. Okay, so they have more responsibility. Oh, and Koran made a great point. He said that the wings actually space the floor, not the bigs. The bigs clog the paint. The bigs have to space the floor because of this era. And to be honest with you, this is another reason why we have to thank a guy like, in a sense, Steph Curry, as G Money mentioned, because Steph Curry, even though he gets labeled so much as a 3 point marksman, even though he can do more than that, Steph Curry, a point guard who's a hybrid, is the reason that the floor is so spaced out in today's NBA. Now, we had teams like the Phoenix Suns, very few teams running the run and gun style, but Steph Curry was the one player that had pretty much gotten the entire league to think that philosophy, along with what Golden State likes to run.
But
So we
don't
got
forget, I'm not to interrupt you, but don't forget Gilbert Arenas actually shot long threes. We watched the Wizards back then.
He did, but the thing is, even though he did that, at the same time, though, I'm just saying, like in terms of the impact of floor spacing, he wasn't a guy who really impacted floor spacing, but he did take a lot of threes. He loved to take long shots. I agree with you, but I'm just saying in terms of impact on. It was crazy that Steph Curry not just got players to do it, but it was like teams. the entire league decided to become a more floor spaced oriented league because the league is about offense now. It's not really much about defense. Like how many guys in the league that can you really say are really legit defenders, in today's NBA?
True.
You can't really say much. And so Tyree kind of makes a point. So you know what? I'm gonna put some names out there right now, and I want you guys to tell me, in your personal opinion, if those guys are known for carrying a franchise and take them deep into the promised land, or are they somebody who really had the benefit off of the play of of their teammates if they had to play with a very good to dominant wing player, either a small forward or a two guard. So I'm gonna throw some names out here, and this is Tyree's favorite. This is his number one player of all time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, most people obviously have him. There's people who have him as the greatest. Tyree does, and most people have him in the top five. I have him as number two all time. But then let me ask you this: do you think that Kareem is worthy of a top 10, considering that even though that he has the greatest offensive shot in history, that's probably the most unguardable in the sky hook, he won two finals MVPs and was never really the best player. He was the best player in the regular season, but never really was the man who carried his teams to the promised land. And he didn't win championships without players like Oscar Robertson and Magic Johnson, who were both point guards. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I agree, Lewis, with your Kareem take on it. The reason why I have Kareem at number one because of his accomplishments in high. If you read about his accomplishments from high school, college, and the pros, I put that as a totality. That's why I have him as my number one player on my
Mm-hmm,
list. But
mm-hmm.
yeah, I agree with even with Kareem. He was never one to lead his teams or was the best player on his teams winning championships. He also needed wing players or slash point guards to carry him to the promised land.
Interesting. G Money?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Kareem, you could make a case he's the GOAT because you could make a case because he's had a lot of accomplishments. He leads the NBA in scoring all time. Kareem, like you said, even though he's a top five player, obviously, Kareem never really became the best player on a championship level winning team. He did need a dominant wing to help him, like a Magic Johnson. So and James Worthy and Byron Scott, etc. But Kareem does deserve more recognition because many people disrespect the dude and they don't mention him. Like, look, I know we all of us have Jordan the GOAT. I mean, excuse me, I know Lewis and I have Michael Jordan the greatest player of all time. But you can make a case for Kareem because his impact he had on the Bucks and the Lakers.
Hmm. Okay. So this is a very difficult argument, but I'm actually glad that we're having this conversation. And again, shout out to Tyree for bringing this up. But I'm going to put it this way: what was the thinking back then when Kareem played? That you had to win a championship with your big as your most dominant player. You build your team through your bigs. Now, as Ryan has said, the game has changed, and so has Ron, and they make great points. And remember when guys like Jordan and Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson came into the league, the sentiment was, and even Larry Bird, the sentiment was, as good players as they can be, you don't look at those guys as impactful players and guys that could lead your team to NBA championships. Larry Bird changed that paradigm the minute he came into the league, and he was a small forward, so he was a wing that helped the Boston Celtics go from a 29 to a 61 win team in just 1 year, and he was only really their real acquisition in the draft. Then you have Magic Johnson, who, when Kareem goes down injured, you're saying to yourself, I can't see, I can't see the Lakers beating the Sixers now because they lost their best player. And what does Magic Johnson do? Arguably the most versatile point guard in NBA history at 6'9", he plays all five positions in a game six. And yeah, that was one game, but it just showed you how versatile Magic was. And he gives you 42 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, and his finals MVP. And it's like the guy did it in his rookie year at 20 years old. So Magic already shown you the versatility, and he was a point guard. Larry Bird has already shown you he can impact the team, and he's a small forward. Then you have Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas, I call him the most impactful little man in NBA history. Led his team to two championships. And remember, the Golden State Warriors are low key a carbon copy of the Detroit Pistons because
Mhm.
Detroit was winning with three guards. going to the final. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals 5 times. They went to the finals 3 times. You could have made a case that they could have three-peated with three guards: Vinnie Johnson, Joe Dumars. They had a great collection of defensive players, and Bill Laimbeer was a stretch big, something that a lot of people criticized Detroit for. So so the Detroit Pistons were actually the prototype for what the Golden State Warriors are today. And Isaiah Thomas gets rid of that paradigm that you don't need to be a dominant big to win championships. Then Michael Jordan changes the paradigm because a leading scorer can't be a leading scorer isn't supposed to lead the league in scoring and win an NBA championship. And Jordan previously had an MVP, and Jordan kept losing out in the playoffs every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Finally broke through in 1991. And then not only does he change the paradigm for a player who and Jordan, I believe, was the first player to lead the league in scoring as a two guard and win an NBA championship out of position when it's supposed to be predominantly you build your game through your bigs. He ends up winning 6 NBA championships, and along with along with Isaiah Thomas, both of those guys, and I give those guys a lot of credit. They changed the thinking that you had to build your team through guards, whether it's a point guard or a two guard. And we're not even talking about the small forward. And I have to give Larry Bird a lot of credit. Yeah, he played with a Hall of Fame front line, but at the same time, I have to give him his respect that he was the best player in the league at the three times, 3 straight years, and he was very impactful the minute he got into the NBA and won a title in his second year. So when you put those kind of arguments, when I just put for those players, and then as G Money, you were mentioning about Alonzo Mourning and Patrick Ewing, how they, as great as those two were, and they're Hall of Famers, they couldn't get their team to the promised land. And remember, Jordan was not there in '94, so Patrick Ewing had his opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, Patrick did not play with another dominant player, which is what he needed. But again, he's going to get the blame. And then Alonzo Mourning, how many playoff failures did he have? As the guy on the team. And he's a former Defensive Player of the Year. So, it's a very difficult argument. But then once you guys come back to that, man, it's really crazy. And what Tyree is saying, I mean, not Tyree, I'm sorry. Anybody like sports, shout out to him. And the Warriors still need a center. And he says the bigs are trying to be the wings now, and it's low key not good for the tradition of basketball. I agree with that. What do you guys think about that statement?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, the bigs are trying to stretch try to be like wings. Like Brooke Lopez is shooting threes, like if he's Clay Thompson. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns is shooting threes, like he's James Harden, and etc. It's like the bigs are trying their best to stretch the floor today. While back in the old day, yeah, they could stretch the floor, but you didn't see them take many threes though. The only guys you saw took a few threes is like Abrina Sabonis from the Portland Trailblazers and Rasheed Wallace and etc. But other than that, you didn't see the bigs take as many outside shots now compared to back then.
But the bigs, they have to adjust to this era of basketball and take threes because the speed of the game is a lot faster than it was, say, in the big man era. That's why the
Mm-hmm.
big man in the '90s, most people would say the '90s were the big man era because of the tempo, the pace of the game was a lot slower. So big men were able to, sit in the paint and go to work. Now it's all about team speed and threes, and if you don't have that as a big man, I mean, good luck in being in the NBA. So I don't think they want to shoot a lot of threes like that. They just have to adjust to today's NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Ryan's got a question, and he asked me, but I'm going to ask you guys. He says, who in NBA history can you include positionless basketball, positionless basketball players? Who is the best wing player, in your personal opinions?
Whew. You want to go first, Tyree?
Yeah, can you ask that question again, Lewis? I got confused.
Okay. So I think Ryan is trying to say, okay, he says, who in NBA history can you include in positionless basketball players as the best wing player? And he's talking
As,
about NBA history, not today's NBA. When it
Mm,
comes to positionless basketball players, that's a tough question.
it
We're gonna
is
have to
tough.
really think about that. We're gonna have to really think about that one.
I will go with positionless, the greatest positionless player I think I've ever seen. He's not the greatest player, but he's the best that I've seen as far as positionless, it's probably LeBron James.
Okay.
I like to go LeBron James. He run the
Okay.
point. He could be your shooting guard. Sometimes, he could be your power forward, your small forward. You can run
That's
your
a really
offense.
that's a really hard argument, man. I would have to, yeah. I mean, I could think of a couple of guys, but they really more so can play another position. So I would say two. But anyway, G Money, who was you gonna say? Who were you gonna
It's
say?
to me, it's going to be between LeBron or Larry Bird. But if I have to choose, even though I think Larry Bird is a better player than LeBron, I may have to say LeBron is the best positionless player of all time, in my opinion. Because, like you said, he could be your point guard, he could be a small forward, he could be your power forward, he could be a shooting guard at times, but he cannot really play the center, though. But LeBron can do it all, can do it all, though. So I
Oh,
gotta say, yeah,
oh, my bad, G Money. Not let me also add in Oscar Robertson and Magic Johnson. I'm gonna add
yeah,
those in as well.
hmm
Yeah. You know what? This is tough because you know what? It's crazy because I would have to put LeBron, Magic, and Oscar as the three players in NBA history, in my personal opinion, that can play positionless basketball. But I think Oscar Robertson to me was more of a point guard, two guard. Magic Johnson to me had the ability to play all five positions if he wanted to. And then you have LeBron too. The one advantage LeBron has is that LeBron is more athletically gifted than Magic Johnson and was a better defender at his peak than Magic. So I would also have to go with LeBron James, with Magic being a close second because as I mentioned, Magic was one Finals MVP playing all five positions when Kareem was injured. And so for him to do that was special. But LeBron's been doing it for damn near 20 years, and he's still playing at an amazing high level. And the fact that LeBron could still be able to play the point, at his age, in his 17th year, and playing the power forward position. So LeBron could really play four positions on offense, and he could switch up and do some things on defense. Not like he used to, but still. So I would have to put that. So Bronco Fanatic has got enough. He's got a question. Do you think more bigs are better on both ends of the floor or wings? I would have to personally go with wings because the bigs are not really well. Well. When you mean on offense and defense, I would still have to go with the wings just because of the fact of where they score the ball and it's in different areas. Whereas centers are mainly going into the paint. But if you're talking about today's game, they're forcing centers to be wing players today. So the only person that I could think, well, this the two best centers that I can think about that are pretty much probably the best at scoring outside and inside, and then be able to defend when he's fully healthy. Joel Embiid.
hmm
Uh, when he's fully healthy, I go with Joel Embiid. Jokic, I would put him, but my issue with him has always been his conditioning. And if you look at this season, he had to work himself into shape. So that's kind of like my issue with him. And I know that Joel is, he tends to has an injury history, injury prone, but I think fully healthy, Joel Embiid to me is the best player in terms of bigs that can do it at both ends of the floor when he's healthy. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm gonna go wings too because it's wings that actually play both sides of the ball, like Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, PJ Tucker, Trevor Ariza, you know, both Donovan Mitchell. Sometimes you have more wings who are willing to put effort on the defensive end and could put the ball in the bucket. There's too many bigs today who really are not great defenders. Like Karl Anthony Towns is a he can put the ball in the bucket, but he cannot play defense. I mean, there's also who else is a bad defender? There's also Kevin Love. Kevin Love can put the ball in the bucket, but he can't play defense. So it's like there's more wings who are willing to give effort on both sides of the basketball compared to the bigs.
I will have to go. Well, for me, it's two different. I'm about to make two different statements.
Okay.
I have wings as far as offense and defensively. They are better scoring all around than the big man is, and defensively they can switch to multiple players. But as far as stat wise, the big man will have better stats offensively and defensively as well when guarding another big man.
Okay. So my argument would be for the fact that if bigs are going to be in positionless basketball and they're going to be able to shoot the three, they still have to take the responsibility to guard their man. And if they can't do that, then they're kind of, to me, they're one dimensional. So that makes them to me a little bit more less effective because they're only good for certain one end on the floor, especially if you're looking at a big that is only good in terms of a rebounder and a defender, but he's not able to switch because he's only good for the low post. And then offensively, he really can't give you much because he can't really expand his game. His game is just off of lobs and dunks. And then if he's not a good free throw shooter on top of that, you have to foul him so you can play the hacker game, with them. Uh, and in terms of all around, I would have to go with wings because of their ability to switch. They can play. You're talking about possibly guarding three positions, just that alone, not even touching the power forward. You could go to point guard. You could switch onto a point guard. You could switch and play your own position, and then you could go switch and play a three. So um, all around, I would have to go with the wing players a little bit more when it comes to both ends of the floor. I mean, because when you look at bigs, they can impact the game, but remember they're doing that from the paint. Uh, Even if you drive on a wing player, they still have the potential to block your shot as long as they can stay with you. Whereas that you don't. Obviously, today's bigs are obviously out more on the perimeter, you know, but back then it was just they clogged the paint, like they hung out in the paint, like that's where they were at. They had to stay there, so that's what they're at. Let me just check in the chat before we continue. Karam says that the Warriors still need a center. Very true. Ryan says,
Mhm.
I do think that we wouldn't have positionless basketball if players stayed in their true position. No, it's true. No, it's true. The element of big man is gone. So that's the key thing. Because we don't have a lot of bigs in the NBA, that's why there's positionless basketball. And that's why we're in the small ball era. And that's why more bigs have converted to more three-point shooting in today's game. The bigs are trying to be the wings now, and it's low key not good for the league. Yeah, I mean, but unfortunately, a lot of people will say that the game is great because it's evolving. The Warriors have the best shooting backcourt that I've ever seen. When it comes to shooting, yes, I can't argue with that. I don't think there's a better
Mhm.
backcourt when it comes to shooting than Steph and Clay, the Splash Bros. Silver won't let the Warriors get a center who is elite as long as the core in their prime. I mean, look how many people complained when they signed DeMarcus Cousins, and he wasn't even healthy. That's the crazy
Mhm.
part. He signed a veteran's minimum. He wasn't even healthy, and they were BSing and moaning about they're gonna get all the players. I'm like, but then it's like the player power people get to move wherever they want, and they're just doing their job as an organization. So no, they're supposed to stop to get great players. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
Anybody like sports says there's nothing wrong with being 6'10" to 7'2" with a 3-point shot, but handle your big man responsibilities. Make the threes your bonus, like shoot four in a game if you're even good. I can agree with that, and that's a very good point. Let me see. Ron says it's tough because between a wing and a big by nature, the skill set is so different. A wing couldn't help if they couldn't bang inside, and the bigs couldn't if they couldn't play outside. Well, I'm gonna give a little bit to a counter argument on that one, Ron. And we don't see this a lot, but I will say this that I think wings can't really bang with bigs. So what the wings have to usually do is they have to front. If you look at how Scottie Pippen would guard like a Charles Barkley, Charles would want to back him down. Pippen knows that he's not going to be able to deal with Barkley's weight, and you're right, he's not going to be able to bang with Charles. But he could still guard the position by being smart because defensively it's about using your IQ. So as long as you not only do you have your instincts, but you have IQ, you can defend somebody very, very intelligently. So it really takes IQ. And Scottie Pippen, when they say, I wouldn't say he was sharp, shut Barkley down, but I would say he guarded him intelligently. And how did he do that? When you go up against post players who are trying to get post position, you got to front them, put your body in front of them, and again, Scotty used his wingspan to his advantage so that no entry passes will be, or being able to be lobbed in so that Charles could get the ball and go to work. And if you guys remember about the 5 seconds back to the basket and the defensive 3-second rule, like those weren't really into effect like it is in today's game. And a lot of that has to do with Shaq with his own defense rule. So I think that uh, if wings are going up against wings that like to post up, like for example, let's say an MJ, the wings are going to be in there to bang. They're just going to be doing it with the wings. But if they're going to guard big men, and if you're versatile enough to guard a big man, your key is the front. But when it comes to banging, they have no chance. Just like when you put a big in a pick and roll situation and they get switched with a point guard or a player that's got handles, if it's at the 1, 2, or 3 position, doesn't matter. So as long as that happens, bigs are not going to be able to have the foot speed to be able to stay with them unless they're able to do that. And there's very few people that can really stay with those kind of players. Uh, Anybody like sports says LeBron cannot be a shooting guard with all due respect. No, normally no. I told
No.
you he can arguably play 4 positions. He can play 3, but arguably 4. But he's not. He even says he was a trash. Well, I think you mean G Money because you said Freddie, but this is G Money. Tyree and Freddie, I want to ask you guys: do you want your bigs to take charges than trying to protect the paint? Your response?
I like my bigs protecting the paint. I don't want my
Hmm.
bigs gambling and hurting their legs or getting their knee twisted or anything like that. I rather them try to protect the paint by contesting jump shots than taking charges.
Same here. I'd rather see my base try to block shots, trying to protect the rim, rather than see them try to draw a charge and potentially hurt their back or their leg or their knee or something. Because we all know Kyle Lowry and Earth's son Ilyasova like to draw a lot of charges, but they're not bigs. So I'm just saying that I prefer the bigs to block shots, to protect the rim, to prevent easy layups or dunks.
Okay. I mean, I want my bigs guarding the paint. Listen, I appreciate the hustle if those guys really want to win and put their bodies on the line like that. But their job is to protect the paint. That's the reason why they're power forwards and centers. Their job is really just to guard the basket. If they're trying to consistently take charges, to be honest, it's like it's not. They're more prone to get into foul trouble if they're trying to take a charge every time because the ref is not always going to call a charging foul on every single play, and because big men have to be physical, if they get a slap on the wrist, they could be called for a foul easy. And your big man is very important, to be able to protect the paint because if they can't protect the paint, then that makes it easier for the offense to drive to the basket. And what you're trying to do is for a team that scores inside and for a team that is an inside out offense, you want to make sure that you have them starting out from the perimeter so that they don't score easy, you know, in the basket. So that's what you want to do when it comes to those guys. um, Ron says in today's NBA, except for a few cases, the big man position has pretty much been phased out because of the way the game is played today. Oh, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I would personally take my big man out the game if he does that because it could make him more injury prone and could injure, like Tyree was saying. Others well under the basket. I'm talking about the way it was overall. Shout out to Kareem Blackson in the building. Shout out to you. He says, you pick a 6'5" power forward, for example. Scottie Pippen is not fronting Karl Malone. Yeah, yeah, yep. And G Money will be right back. Let me just continue in the chat before we continue. I want to put in another center. Butler against Towns. He shut him down in practice. Well, well. We talk. We talking about practice. Not a game. Not a game. We talking about practice. Practice, man. Shout out to AI and shout out to Weiss in the building who's here. Uh, there are no physical big men in today's game. Or I agree with you. That's for sure. Um, do you remember Shaw trying to take charges? Shaq, yeah. Shaq's not a guy taking charges. He shouldn't be a guy taking charges. Okay, let me ask you about this next center, all time great. And do you think that he deserves to be in the top 10? Bill Russell, when it comes to bigs compared to wings being in the top 10. Anybody can start the combo.
I like Bill Russell. Bill Russell was good, but no, I don't see Bill Russell as a top 10 player. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but here's what's crazy, right? Bill Russell in his career only averaged 15 points in his career as a center, shooting 44% from the field and 56% at the foul line. He did get a lot of rebounds, which was good, which was 23 rebounds per game. But Bill Russell has had the benefit of the doubt playing with Hall of Famers, though. That's what I'm saying. Bill Russell was good. Don't get me wrong, but I cannot put a guy who averages 15 points on 44% from the field as a center as a top 10. I'm sorry, no way. He's a good player, but I'm sorry, Bill Russell did not have he was a good defender at times, but he just didn't have the offensive skills as a top 10 player of all time. He doesn't have a good his jumper is funky at times. He's a decent defender, but to be honest with you, he played in a weak era back then. So and he's had the benefit of the doubt playing with Hall of Fame wings, Hall of Fame players. So yeah, I don't see Bill Russell as a top 10 player. No way.
And before Tyree continue, don't mean to interrupt Tyree. Just real quick, Ryan says he's asking. Well, he's gonna even Shaq would actually be my next person, and then Ryan says just putting rings aside. But go ahead, Tyree.
G Money, I absolutely agree.
Hmm.
Even though, hey, I don't want people to sleep on this. Bill Russell was a great athlete, by the way. But G
Hmm.
Money, everything you said, I absolutely agree, sir. There's no way you can have those numbers as a center. I think the White Howard uh efficiency rating is about like 62%. There's no way for Bill Russell to be shooting 44% in the paint as a center when
Hmm.
there was no other great, well, maybe two or three other great centers in his time. So no way for me.
I mean, and looking at Dwight Howard, I mean, he's an eight-time All-Star, led the league in rebound five times, eight All-NBA teams, Rookie of the Year, two times led the league in blocks, five All-Defensive teams, and three-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's for his career, he averages 16.8 points. So kind of around where Bill Russell was at, but a lot of that had to do with his injury. So he kind of fell off and with the way the game has changed. 12 rebounds. He's a career 58.6 field
Okay,
goal shooter.
58.
58.6. Um, you know, while if we go to Bill Russell on the other hand and then look him up,
Yeah,
and
like I
I
said, he shot 44% as a center. Like I said.
if you look at Bill Russell, he made 12 all it's crazy how Bill made 12 all-star teams.
Hmm.
While Dikembe Mutombo made 8 and he was what 11 points per game in his career. But look, 15 points per game, 22 and a half rebounds, 44% shooting, and he shot the same free throw percentage as Dwight Howard, and they're about the same numbers. And I think had it not been for Dwight's injuries, and I think Dwight Howard would be clearly over 20 points. And when you think about centers in terms of the greatest, now I get it. Bill was an unbelievable athlete, and I say that. I appreciate that anybody likes sports. Um, even though Bill was a great athlete, he was a tremendous athlete like Will Chamberlain. It's Bill was really more so impacting on the defensive end, um, and it was really more so about defense. You didn't have to rely on him to score the basketball. And G Money said that he did play with a lot of Hall of Fame teammates. I mean, you look at Bob Cousy, Sam
Hmm.
Jones, Tommy
Hmm.
Heinsohn,
Hmm.
uh, John Havlicek.
Hmm.
Trying to think of JoJo White. I mean, he played with a lot of great players, that are in there. Now, he take Bill Russell off that team, they're not winning a championship. That's obvious. Um, but if he was the go-to player and he struggled that much, that's we be looking at this guy differently. And it's like now, Bill Russell, he gets the recognition for his championships, and like I said, he was a great, great defensive player, very impactful defensive player. He was the staple. Yeah, I agree with you, Kareem. No, he was the staple of the defense. But the conversation is when we're talking about these centers is as the men on their team, like I said, at least with both ends, would they be leaders and be able to lead their team, especially with what the paradigm was back then. And make sure you guys are smashing the like button and hitting that subscribe, for the Lewis Sports Network. And make sure to share this on your social media with my special guests, Tyree and G Money, two of my very great and supportive subscribers. Appreciate them for coming through and being guests on this NBA live stream topic. So now that we talked about Bill Russell, and again, shout out to Bill Russell. That's not with all due respect. This is just
Also,
everybody's
Lewis,
personal
before
opinion.
you keep going,
Go ahead.
we failed to mention that Bill Russell only played, I think, 11 teams a year.
Hmm.
Is
Considering the era, eight to ten teams,
eight
eight
to
to
ten
ten teams.
teams. There's no way you're supposed to be. If you're that dominant on defense, you're supposed to be also that dominant on offense. If you're Bill Russell, only having 8 to 10 teams in your league, and you're one of the great all-time athletes.
Yeah, and Bill Russell's most dominant scoring seasons at center was in 1959 and 1960 and 1962. 1962 was his highest, and he averaged 18 points per game, but he only shot 45% from the field, and this was on 16 shot attempts, and he only
Hmm.
made 7 of them per game. And this is a guy who's supposed to be centered around the basket, so it's a little bit strange. But then sometimes people are going to have to start saying this now. But it's crazy how Wilt dominated, and he's a great athlete. Bill Russell's a great athlete, but he didn't dominate like Wilt did because Bill says that wasn't his game, right? Um, but we already know that Wilt had so many more dominant seasons. And Bill Russell was a little more undersized than Wilt. But even with as athletically as he was, you would even think a guy like Bill Russell, you think that he possibly could have, been more dominant, right? But that was not the case. And let me just check in the chat. Ryan says Bill Russell, Wilt, Kareem dominated that era because it was built for them. Some people would say that the centers that they played against, that there were a lot of tall guys, man. So there's always going to be counters to this when it comes to some of these arguments. But like I said, I thought this was a good stream, for this argument though.
Hmm.
Um, he wasn't an offensive player, but he was a staple. KB. Okay, who held more value between George the Iceman Gervin or Artis Gilmore on San Antonio?
Mm.
Hmm.
Well, look at it this way. Neither one of those guys won when it came to championships, and you're comparing a center to a small forward. No, Gervin played, no, small forward. He played small forward. I think he played two guard and small forward, I believe. Uh, but the Iceman was never really known as a defender. He was just a guy who could put the ball in the basket. He was about offense, and he loved to play in a fast paced style. That was the Iceman. He loved the ABA. He was what the ABA was, the ABA style of basketball that eventually came into the NBA. But it's like that's kind of difficult to say right there because both of those guys are great players and both of those guys are in the Hall of Fame. I'm surprised it took Artis Gilmore such a long time to get in, which is, pretty crazy to me. But it's difficult because none of those guys were really able to win. So it's difficult from that standpoint, from a wing, and that's a very good question, Sly, because neither one of these guys will win as the men on their team. So very interesting point. And Jay says Bill was a little overrated.
Hmm.
Hakeem the Dream is the greatest center of all time. He doesn't care what anybody says, and hey, that's fine with me. And
Same
Kareem
here.
says he won. That's all that counts. You're putting too much into stats. Well, this is the conversation. Well, the thing is, I'm gonna put it like this, Kareem. Sometimes when it comes to certain players and certain narratives, people kind of put stats into everything. Where with some other players, you can't always put stats into it, which is true. But but the reason that this conversation is coming up is because with centers, there's other guys who you could probably say the stats don't really always measure up to how impactful and great they were, but they're not considered great players or great leaders. And the argument is with Bill Russell, he was a great athlete. He's great defensively and rebounding. I have him number 3 all time on my list. That's where I got Bill Russell. But they're saying because he really didn't. He was a great rebounder, but he didn't really dominate offensively for somebody whose game was centered around the basket. Even though offensively that was not his mainstay. But like I said, it is what it is. So there's Bill Russell, but again, I have him in my top three. I mean, winning should be the name of the game, but remember, with some players, when they don't be successful winning, and they're kind of considered as the greatest of all time in a top 10 list, winning doesn't matter. So that's what I'm saying, that the narrative and the argument always changes when it comes to certain players. And this is why Tyree brought in this argument with wings and centers, which is why I thought it was a good argument. Um, okay, now that we got Bill Russell, what about the player that Jay mentioned? What do you think about Hakeem?
Yeah, I think Hakeem deserves to be a top 10 player. Listen, you know I love MJ, but at the same time, I'm one of those people who think that even if Jordan had not retired, I think Hakeem would have won the 95 title. That's just me. Hakeem Olajuwon was so underrated, man. He didn't have a dominant, I mean, he did have a dominant wing in Clyde Drexler, but at the same time, he didn't have a dominant wing in 1994, though. Don't forget. So Hakeem Olajuwon was so underrated. He could post up. He could hit the mid range shot. He can have the up and under. He had crazy footwork. He was pretty athletic. He could block shots. Hakeem Olajuwon was very underrated, man. And I just kind of, even though I love Jordan, I kind of get annoyed at times when people say Hakeem only won two rings because MJ retired. But people forget that he played in 1995 and the Bulls lost to the Magic in the second round. And people like to say that, oh, MJ was rusty, but he averaged 31 points per game in the Magic series. That's not being rusty at all. I'm just saying that Hakeem Olajuwon was one of the most underrated players to ever touch a basketball. Do I think he's the best center in NBA history? You could make a case, but I'm just saying that Hakeem, the Dream, deserved his respect for his impact on the Houston Rockets and in the NBA.
Yeah, I got Hakeem in my top 10. I think I have him at 10 because he was one of the centers to lead his team without a dominant wingman. And as great he was offensively, and not also offensively, but defensively, and also was great at rebounding, high basketball IQ. And I agree with you, G Money. I think in '95, I still think Hakeem would have won a chip, even if Jordan was playing. I just think that the Bulls would have been burnt out, going
Mm-hmm.
6, 7 straight times to the NBA championship. So I think Hakeem would have at least got one of those. But yeah, Hakeem was an all-time great center. I don't have him as the best center, but he is one of the all-time great centers. I have him ranked at my number 10.
Same here, man. I have a number 10 too.
I'm gonna say this about Hakeem. Hakeem is definitely a top five center of all time, and in my personal opinion, Hakeem is the most skilled center to ever play in NBA history. My personal
Mm-hmm.
opinion. Now, what kind of hurts Hakeem is the fact that he isn't as accomplished as a guy like Kareem or Bill Russell. But if he had more accomplishments, like those two gentlemen, even though obviously he's a much more better offensive player than Bill Russell is. And as Kareem had mentioned about Bill Russell was the undisputed leader for those 11 championship teams, despite playing with non Hall of Famers, Hakeem would probably be the greatest center to ever play in NBA history. But the thing is, when you're going up against guys who have probably, when it comes to winning, more than he did, regardless of era, whatever you want, the thing was is that those guys were able to win in their era. And then when you look at what Kareem has, stacked up against Hakeem, that's why the argument becomes more difficult for Hakeem. But it's everybody's personal opinion, though. And Hakeem did beat some of the best centers in his prime. I mean, he beat Patrick Ewing. He beat David Robinson in his prime. He beat Shaq. Even you could say Shaq was in his third year or whatever, but and Shaq was not Shaq in LA, but Shaq did make All-Star teams. At that point, he was a four-time All-Star. So we got to give the guy his due. I mean, he beat some of the best centers in NBA history, and they're all top 50 players. So let's get that in too. Um, but and the thing is also Hakeem actually did more with less. You look at the '94 run, didn't have a top 50 player. You look at '95, yeah, they got Clyde Drexler in a trade, but Clyde Drexler wasn't really in his prime. It was kind of like Clyde in his last good years before Clyde kind of tailed off. And, the '95 Rockets arguably having the most difficult playoff run of any team in NBA history. Yeah, I would put the 2011 Mavericks up there, with what they went through. And what's this other team I'm thinking about? Uh, no, in terms of with Dirk, because of Dirk being really the only all star, legit all star, with the players he played with, is the run that he made. So it's a difficult argument for Hakeem. But but in terms of top five, he's in my top five. He's in terms of centers of all time. He's definitely in my top 10 of all time greatest players because he deserves to be there because of what he was able to do with how dominant and skilled he was. Um, the greatest is something that I have a difficult time, but Hakeem deserves my respect, and he's definitely up there all time. So we have, who did I mention? Bill Russell, Kareem, and we have Hakeem. Next all time great center, Shaq.
Yeah, she keep the Diesel, the big Aristotle. Yeah, he deserves to be a top 10. He won. He should have won unanimous MVP in 2000. He led the Lakers to a three-peat back in 2000, 2001, and 2002. In 1995, I know he was swept in the finals, which hurts his legacy a bit, but he took a young Magic team to the NBA Finals. Shaquille O'Neal used his force, his physical strength, his toughness to bully cats down low in the post, man. Shaquille O'Neal had the footwork, he had the skill set as a super dominant big. I understand the Lakers played weak teams in the finals and the Sixers and the Nets, but at the same time, Shaq was arguably the physically tough center in NBA history. Someday in the future, guys, check his 2000 finals when he averaged 38 points and 16 rebounds. That was just phenomenal, man. Shaquille O'Neal was one of the most toughest big men to ever guard. He could post you up. He could dunk in your butt. He could put up the floater. He can, etc. He could block shots, etc. and etc. So I'm just saying that Shaquille O'Neal, he did have a dominant wing in Kobe Bryant. And again, Shaq and Kobe needed each other to wing. And also, Shaq also had a dominant wing in D Wade. But I'm just saying that Wade and Kobe don't have more rings without Shaq. Shaquille O'Neal is one of the most physically gifted big men in NBA history. Shaq's a dog.
Okay, nice. What do you think, Tyree?
G Money, I love Shaq. I think you just overrated him so much just now, bro. I have Shaq. I have Shaq eighth on my list. Shaq
Same
was a
here.
dominant. He was a dominant center, but Shaq was dominant when it was no big man in the league. So, and he was in the triangle offense. If you know about the triangle offense, it always features the big man. So that's why Shaq was able to get his numbers and also dominate in a watered down big man league. But physically dominant, yes, he was. Shaq was so dominant that at that time you couldn't do nothing with Shaq. But he still needed a dominant wing to win. If
True.
Penny Hardaway wouldn't have got, I mean, if he would have stayed with Penny Hardaway a little longer, I think they would have won a ring in Orlando. He had to just to wait till Penny. I think if Penny would have became on, say, say in 2 more years, became one of the best players in the league, say top five players in the league, Shaq would have won with Penny. He got with the Lakers in '96 and didn't win until 2000, until Kobe started becoming into his own. And then he went to Miami Heat, where there was Dwayne Wade, who was also coming into his own to becoming a dominant wing. But I agree, Shaq was a dominant, great player, but he still needed a dominant wing to win. And also, he was so dominant in a watered down big man league.
Yeah, he did. Shaq did need a dominant wing. Because I'll be fair, without Wade and Kobe, he has zero rings right now.
You know what, man? Just listening to all this, I made a video a long time ago about why I felt that even though Shaq was a top 10 player, I felt like he left so much on the table. The guy was a very lazy defender, even though he's top five all time in blocks, which is crazy for a guy who didn't play defense. But uh, and Shaq never liked to defend the pick and roll. And Shaq was not. He made three All NBA second teams. For a guy that was as physically dominant as Shaq was, he should have made all the more defensive teams, but he was very lazy on that end of the floor. Also, when you look at Shaq's career, it's crazy how I got to give Dwayne Wade a lot of credit. And I know we're talking about wings here, but and I know Shaq was not in his prime, even though he was what 34 years old. But think about it this way: Wade won a championship with Shaq, and he won championships with LeBron James, a
Mhm.
big and a wing. And this is a wing we're talking about in Dwayne Wade. He won a championship. He won championships with Shaq, a big, and LeBron, a wing. If you really, kind of pay attention to that, which is crazy. And the thing with Shaq is that he could have been the greatest player of all time, in my personal opinion, had he really taken his leadership role and his conditioning much more seriously. He pretty much coasted. If you look at the other two championships, he was like, let me just get ready by playoff time because I knew I had a superstar in Kobe that was always going to be ready. And people forget, and I mentioned this, these are the guys that Shaq was losing to before Kobe Bryant came into prominence. 1994. Yeah, they end up losing to the Pacers, but they didn't have a dominant big. Fine. 1995 loses to Hakeem Olajuwon, who was really in his last years in his prime in terms of dominance, like with his skill set. 96, yeah, he ends up losing to Jordan. Obviously, okay, that's a win. Then you have 1997, you're losing to Karl Malone, and the 2 years that you lose to him back to back, the Jazz go to the finals. Then you look at in back-to-back years, and then you look at 1999. He loses to Tim Duncan and David Robinson. So this is all before 2000. So from 95 to 99, Shaq had lost to Hakeem. They win the finals. Michael Jordan in 96, and that's with Shaq and Penny. The the Bulls go to the finals and win the championship. 97, the Utah Jazz, they go to the NBA Finals. 1998, Utah Jazz go to the NBA Finals. 1999, the Spurs go to the NBA Finals and they win. So in 3 of the 5 years that Shaq went up against, that he went up against in terms of his competition, they were the NBA champion that year, and they went to the finals every single year from 1995 to 1999. That's crazy. And Shaq had a losing record in conference finals play, before the 2000. And Tyree kind of has a point. There were bigs in Shaq's era, but in terms of at his position, it was really more so watered down because Tim Duncan primarily played power forward, and even though he would also play center, he was primarily a power forward. David Robinson was already past his prime, and some of the bigs were more so defensive players than they were offensive players. So they weren't bigs who could really do it at both ends of the floor that could really go at Shaq. I mean, Shaq did his thing. No, don't get me wrong, he did his thing. But Shaq was another player that, as the undisputed leader of the team, as Shaq always said himself, it's just really strange that Shaq left so much on the table. And Shaq's 4 rings are a testament to, yeah, Shaq is one of the most impactful players in NBA history. No question about it. Undisputed leader, no doubt about it. But to me, he was not great as a leader because of what he left on the table, as dominant as Shaq was. And listen, I give him credit for the finals MVPs that he won, for the 3 championships he won, the championship he won with Dwayne Wade. But, and it's like all of that happened. He won all those rings and he was just never really motivated. And Shaq told you after 1 ring with Kobe, he was set. He was set. And I said, and Kobe's, and you know, I get it. People can say whatever they want about Kobe, but at least he was motivated to still win, even if you didn't agree with his methods. Shaq, he just didn't like the fact that Shaq was lazy. That's all it was. They could have won possibly 5 to 6 titles. I could have seen
Mhm.
them winning 5 to 6 titles together. And that's my realistic model. And this is a team with 2 players that didn't have the highest basketball IQ in Kobe and Shaq, in terms of why Phil Jackson was always afraid when they went up against high IQ basketball teams. This is out of Phil's mouth. And it's true. And in the chat, Kareem, was saying it right here. He said, "You're right. All that happened, and it still didn't motivate him." Exactly. And he's the
Mhm.
opposite of Bill Russell. Bill Russell, at the very least, was about winning, even though he was a limited offensive player. If Bill Russell has Shaq's dominance, oh my goodness, oh my
Mhm. Ooh.
goodness, we'd be talking about Bill Russell as the greatest player of all time. If he has Shaq's dominance, Bill Russell's the greatest player of all time.
And the Celtics might have had more championships.
Oh yeah, and they won 11 in his 13 full seasons, which is just pretty crazy because he did 2 of them as a coach. Um, so yeah, he relied on his talent, and Jay's right. Um, So that's why Kobe really wanted to push Shaq because it was about winning. And Jay makes another good point too. Um, Ron is right. You could make the case Shaq and Wilt were the most two powerful bigs that you've arguably we've ever seen. And how do you get defended by Dennis Rodman? Dennis Rodman is one of the greatest defenders in NBA history. When it comes to versatile defensive bigs, who started out guarding wing players in Detroit, and then they converts to guarding bigs in San Antonio and in Chicago. And Shaq, didn't do his best against, Dennis Rodman, which is crazy. Shaq to me was just very lazy for a guy who had so much potential, man. Yeah, you could ask Mount Mutombo, dealing with Shaq, and that was Shaq in his prime when Shaq would be in shape. But you know, that's what it is. So we got Shaq, we got Kareem, and we got Bill in the top 10. Okay, let's get to this player, Tim Duncan. What are your impressions of Tim Duncan?
The big fundamental, Timmy D. Tim Duncan is one of the most underappreciated players of all time. In 1999, Tim Duncan took the Spurs all the way to the finals and tortured our New York Knicks in 5 games. Man, Tim Duncan was a beast in his second year. And in 2002, he won the MVP. I think it should have gone to Jason Kidd, but that's a long story short. Tim Duncan in 2003, his finals performance against the at the time New Jersey Nets was phenomenal. People need to watch that series though. In 2003, in 2005, he got it done versus the Pistons. 2007, they swept the Cavs. 2013, if the Spurs didn't choke to the Heat in 2013, Tim Duncan could have won Finals MVP. If you think about it, he could have won it though. And in 2014, they got it done. Tim Duncan and the Spurs won the chip. Tim Duncan is one of the most underappreciated players of all time. He's quiet, he's humble, he pays attention to detail. He was a very good shot blocker. He has that awesome bank shot that everybody loves. He was a good post player. Had very underrated footwork. He could hit the mid range shot. And Tim Duncan was just quiet. He just didn't want to be with the media. Did he need a dominant wing? He never had a dominant wing. If you want to say Manu Ginobili, okay, but to be honest, he didn't have a dominant wing on his team though. So I'm just saying that Tim Duncan was one of the most underappreciated players to ever step on the court. And it's such a shame that people don't appreciate this dude. Without Tim Duncan, the Spurs don't have championships. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, Tim Duncan footwork, his confidence was high. He just played without talking. The big fundamental was legendary.
Yeah, I have Tim Duncan on my number 7 of my top 10 list. Tim Duncan is one of the great post players I think I've ever seen. He can post you up. He can face you up. People forget that Tim Duncan transition. He can also handle the ball a little bit too, going from
I
one end
get
to
Hmm.
the other.
exactly. Yeah.
He was also a great rebounder and a good defensive player. What kills Tim Duncan with not being in the top 5 is how boring of a player he was. He Tim Duncan was so quiet that he wasn't a spectacular scorer. I think he averaged about 19, 20 points per game. He was efficient. He was a great team leader. He also sacrificed a lot as well. People don't talk about the sacrifices that Tim Duncan made. Sometimes he would, let Tony Parker and Ginobili go ahead and take over games. Sometimes he let Boris Diaw and Steven Jackson and them guys go ahead and make good shots and big shots. And he wasn't selfish at all. So Tim Duncan is one of the big all-time greats. He didn't have a dominant
You know what?
wing player, but he did have Tony Parker, who in the mid 2000s was considered as one of the best point guards in the league.
Hmm.
And not a lot of people talk about that. But
True.
Tim Duncan can carry another franchise team if he had to.
Hmm.
I mean, when it comes to Tim Duncan, he definitely deserves to be in the top 10 all time. I would say 6 to 10. Shout out to Caden in the building. Make sure you guys go subscribe to his channel. He's trying to get to 400 subscribers. It really made me happy if you guys, give him some love. He's a Falcons fan and an Atlanta Hawks fan, also an Atlanta Braves fan. I didn't even realize he was into baseball. I was watching a little bit of the draft, by the way, Caden. I got through the first 10 picks. I didn't get to see, I might have to check out your video because I am an avid baseball fan, as you can see on my thumbnail overlay over here, and it is pretty beautiful. And I'm so glad that I worked hard on it and people appreciate it. But I still think, because I'm a Yankees fan, obviously. But like I said, I appreciate great players. Ken Griffey was my favorite player growing up, along with Albert Pujols. So like, there goes a little bit of my baseball. But getting back onto Tim Duncan, um, actually, great point by anybody like sports. Tim Duncan was like the Derek Jeter to the Yankees, and I can agree with that because again, quiet, humble, leader, winner is what I think about Tim Duncan. He's a guy who easily could have averaged anywhere from 25 to 28 points if he wanted to. If you're talking about somebody that could give you 28, 5, and 10, I think his best season he averaged 25 and 12, and I believe that was the year he won his first MVP in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, the one he won over Jason Kidd. Um, and shout out to Caden. He says he hit 400. Congratulations to Caden. Much respect to you and well-deserved 400 subscribers. But getting back to Tim Duncan, this guy won 3 Finals MVPs as the undisputed best player on the team. And to be honest with you, would we be talking about David Robinson as an NBA champion had Tim Duncan not arrived to that team? Because remember that David Robinson had his opportunities, but unfortunately, David Robinson was not able to do it. And even as the best player in the league in 1995, you could say he had the better team with Rodman and Sean Elliott, but they still got outplayed by Hakeem and the Rockets. And he got dominated in that position, So um, I got to say this, man. Tim Duncan definitely was impactful, great leader. Uh, deserves to. He definitely is deserving in the top 10 all time. I have Tim Duncan at I believe I put him at number 6 or 7.
I
I
have
don't
him
remember.
in this.
I think I have him at 6 all time because I think he's a little more accomplished than Akeem Olajuwon. Um, but Tim Duncan to me, you could also kind of, for me, he's kind of like he was for me the modern day Bill Russell, in my personal opinion. With he just led by example, and he was a great leader. And Tim Duncan, you could say not only was he the staple, but he was definitely the driving force. And this was a guy who wasn't flashy, but if he wanted to, he could have easily been a 25, 26, 27, 28 point per game and 10 to 12 rebound per game rebounder and giving you a double double consistently if he wanted to. And you're talking about a guy who made 15 all defensive teams, which is the most in NBA history. And this is a big man. This is a big man, mind you. 8 first team, 7 second team, which means he was consistently good on defense for 15 years. That's not easy to do for a big man who usually, and you have to also thank Popovich for saving his career for not having him play so many minutes. And he sacrificed for his team to do well. Now, dominant shooting guard, he didn't have that. Manu Ginobili was very good, but I wouldn't call him a dominant two guard, um, just because of that. Manu Ginobili was not. His game was really more so predicated off the bench, and he really more so played off of Tim Duncan. But Manu had the ability to take over games, though he did, and I enjoy Manu playing. And Tony was definitely one of the more underrated point guards in the mid 2000s when he really came into prominence. In his prime. So a lot of credit on that. The only thing was one of the best finishers in the league, and give Tim Duncan credit that he was able to allow them to shine. He played in a different offense when Pop changed it to kind of suit today's NBA, and Tim Duncan was still able to be effective. So Tim Duncan, I feel like more than anybody, deserves to be in that top 10 list of all time when it comes to centers. And we have what? It's crazy. If you look at the top 10 list of all time in most people's list, you have 5 centers, you have 4 wings, and you have a point guard. Magic is the only point guard in the top 10 all time. The only one. And he's kind of considered a big considering how many positions he played. So David Robinson, we wouldn't be talking about him if Tim Duncan had not arrived there, even though he's played with with him. So again, shout out to Timmy Tim. So now that we got the centers out of the way in terms of why they kind of get catered to it's funny because if you look at it,
Not to interrupt you, Lewis, but Tim Duncan was actually a power forward, not a center.
no, he did play center, but he primarily was a power forward because
Okay.
it was late. Because if you look at later in his career, he actually played more center than he did power forward, but he was primarily a power forward. That's why he's called the greatest power forward of all time. Yeah, I know, but I hear what you was trying to say though. So when you look at it, even though Shaq was physically more dominant, oh, and let me get to this last player. I didn't even think about him. Oh man, Wilt the Stilt, the Big Dipper Chamberlain.
It is Wilt. Wilt the still Wilt Chamberlain. Will Chamberlain is one of the most gifted big men of all time. He averaged in his career 30 points per game and 23 rebounds, man, on 54% from the field. Multiple seasons averaging 27 rebounds, etc. He even averaged a fifth in the 1962 season with the Philadelphia Warriors at the time. He averaged 50 points and 26 rebounds in the 1962 season with the Philadelphia Warriors. Will Chamberlain was one of the most underrated big men of all time. I understand he had a 2-4 finals record, which was bad, but Will was just he was just awesome, man. He had a jump hook. He can post up down low. He can block shots. He can, he can crash the glass at will. He can put the ball on the floor. The only thing that killed Will Chamberlain was his free throw shooting. He shot 51% at the foul line. That killed him. But other than that, Wilt was just super underrated. He could put the ball on the floor. He could penetrate to the rim. He could block shots. He can dunk on your butt. He was just so underrated and underappreciated, though.
Okay, Tyree.
Yeah, I love Wilt Chamberlain. I don't have Wilt Chamberlain in my top 10 at all, even though he was a dominant center. Like you said, the stats that he put up, some of the stats still might not ever be touched, but he needed Jerry West, Elgin Baylor. I think Elgin Baylor retired the year that they won with Wilt
Yeah,
Chamberlain.
he retired 9 games into the season that year, so he missed out on the
Right, and
championship.
yeah, and Wilt he never carried the team to a championship team and by himself. He's not able to do that. He's able to give you great numbers, and he's one of the greatest athletes of all time. This guy, I've read things that he benched over 400 pounds, triple jump champion in track, played volleyball. That he even raced cars. Like this guy here is an all time athlete, but was never able to carry the team on his own, and always needed a dominant wing player to win championships for him. But have great numbers, but still not in my top 10.
So with Will Chamberlain, this is a very interesting, piece about him. Will Chamberlain's probably biggest issue was probably his leadership and his selfishness because as dominant as Wilt was, and Wilt probably could have won more championships, uh, he does only have one Finals MVP, and he went to the NBA Finals 6 times and does have a 2-4 record. His biggest issue was is that if he had been more of a team oriented player, he probably would have won more rings. And people felt that Wilt was all he cared about was more so scoring and trying to do everything on his own than really being a really good team player. And he's kind of like on Shaq's thing too. Even though Shaq won championships and he needed wings, I felt that Will Chamberlain left a lot on the table. Um, he left a lot on the table, and I think that again, I feel like Wilt is arguably the greatest athlete that the NBA has ever seen. The NBA has ever seen. And I hate to say it with Michael Jordan. I know Michael gets called for walking on the moon, walking on air with his dunks. And don't get me wrong, Michael was amazing. But again, for a 7-footer to do what Wilt does, and the thing was, he was able to do this also in other things off the court and bench pressing the weight that he did, not only in his career, but post career The guy's an athletic freak. I've never seen anything like Wilt. And Wilt is definitely, obviously one of the greatest to ever do it. And I call him arguably the greatest athlete to ever play, in NBA history. Um, so he definitely, if we were talking greatest athlete, he's definitely in the top three all time already, automatically, with no question. But his issue was leadership and winning. And he really didn't impact, could put up unbelievable stats. And shout out to everybody in the chat who was saying, Jay says Isaiah is his favorite player. Kareem says that he feels that Moses Malone has to be on that list. Well, he's not on most people's top 10, but I could put him as an honorable mention, and I could say,
Mhm.
does he deserve to be there? So I'll get to him next before I get to the wings. Um, and Jay says facts. Will Chamberlain was a stat patter. For me, it's true. He could really put unbelievable stats. He says Wilt is not in his top 10 neither. And this is kind of going back to what they're saying. Like Wilt was somebody who you needed to dump the ball to him for him to make a play. And this is what the theme is kind of about. Wings who can score on their own and with the ball in their hands, as compared to centers who need to get into position and they need to be fed the ball to be able to dominate.
Mhm.
Whereas wings could dominate going to the basket, scoring all over areas of the floor, which is what Tyree's argument is, and this is what this theme is about. So continuing with Will Chamberlain, again, super athletic. Wow, Jay says that he feels that he is a center version of Russell Westbrook. Okay. And the Celtics did have better teams. Yeah, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. So I have to also put that into factor too. Will only wanted to score high numbers on and off the court. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that's true. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about, Winetta. I
Mhm.
know what theory she's talking about too. Um, and yes, rest in peace to the great Will Chamberlain. But yeah, I think Will probably could have won himself probably a couple of more championships than that if it had it not been for because it's funny because they actually knocked off the Boston Celtics finally in the year that he decided to kind of lay back, dial his scoring down. And I believe that was the year that he led the league in assists, the only center in NBA history to this day to lead the league in assists. And that year, Wilt won the championship. Um, so, uh, so there's Wilt, and now let's get to Moses Malone before we get to the wings as an honorable mention. Moses as a top 10 all-time great.
It's not in my
No,
top 10,
no way.
but a great center, one of the most underrated centers of all time, from a guy that's coming out of high school, man. Uh, you man, Moses Malone was just unbelievable, but he's still not in my top 10, even though how great he is. He still needed someone. I don't know. A lot of people say that Dr. J needed Moses Malone, but I think that Moses Malone needed Dr. J more than anything. I'm not sure how you guys feel about it.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I agree.
that's difficult for me to say because Wilt, I know that Moses did make the finals in '81. I know Dr. J went to the finals three times, but and he should have won a fourth time had he beaten the '81 Celtics. But Dr. J, like Moses, only went. This was only Moses' second trip there, while Dr. J had already failed three times. But they both needed each other though. Because neither one
Yeah.
of them were gonna win if they don't end up teaming up. And they had one of the greatest seasons in franchise history and in NBA history. They won 65 games that year and went 12-1 in the postseason. So, and he made the guarantee 4-5-4. And I think Moses was MVP in '83. And he's a three-time MVP winner. Definitely one of the more underrated all-time great centers and players in NBA history. I think if Moses wins a couple more championships, he could probably crack that top 10. And if he wins Finals MVP, because I think Moses was Finals MVP in '83, if I'm not mistaken. I know he won the regular season MVP that year. Um, so I think Moses he has kind of a argument in terms of a small argument to make the top 10. He's not on my top 10. And the crazy part was he won regular season MVP and Finals MVP in '83. that year. So it just lets you know the impact he had. He's like I said, his impact is very underrated. Um, one of the all-time greats. Rest in peace to Moses. Yeah, he went back to back. And Juanetta says, what centers are keeping Moses out of the top 10? Well, you got Shaq, you have Hakeem, you have Bill Russell, and you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's you know, that's kind of it's tough. I mean, but it depends. If you want to put Moses in your top 10, that's fine. If you feel that Moses was better than some of the centers, I mean, because again, this is subjective, so people are going to argue this, no matter which way they see fit. Um, but definitely Moses is underrated. Okay, now let's get to the wings now. What 10 wings, in your personal opinion, could you possibly put in a top 10 list if you're not going to include centers or big men in general?
Let's see. Obviously, the GOAT, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird. Um.
Remember, wings now. Magic doesn't count because he's a point guard.
Oh, sorry, my fault. I meant to say MJ, Bird, Braun. He's in there. Yeah, they're in my top 10. And
So
Kobe, excuse me, and Kobe.
But I asked you to name me 10 because remember, this is what Tyree's talking about. If you're saying that why are bigs more considered to be in the top 10 more than wing players, you got to give me 10 wing players that you think would deserve to be in the top 10. So we have MJ, Bird, Brown, and Kobe. Anybody else?
Okay, let me try. Let me name six more. Maybe Isaiah Thomas should be in there.
But
Isaiah
he's a
Thomas.
point. But he's a point guard.
Oh, point guard. Okay, okay. Oh, fine. You could argue Dwayne Wade.
you could argue D Wade.
You could argue D Wade because he did win the Finals MVP back in 2006. This is tough. Hang on. If Reggie Miller had won a title, I would have put him in that conversation, but he didn't. It's kind of tough. It really is. I gotta think about five more.
Okay, Sly says, what about Scottie Pippen?
No,
Yeah, Scotty's in there. Yeah, Scotty's in there, big time. Scotty Pippen helped the Bulls win a lot of rings. You know, Scotty Pippen was very underrated. I could put
Okay,
Clyde. I could put Clyde Drexler in there,
Ty,
maybe.
okay, Tyree, what's your disagreement on Pippen not being in the top 10? If this is just about wings,
if it's just about wings, I don't
yeah.
even. I don't think that you could. I believe you could find 10 wings better than Scottie Pippen. That's
Okay.
so. If I could find 10 wings better than Scottie Pippen, there's no way that he deserves to be top 10 wings of all time. If I could find 10 better wings,
All right. So we got MJ, Bird, Braun, Kobe, Wade. Who else can you put in there?
Um,
We got
I
five so far.
you probably would disagree. I would put Kevin Durant in there. Like maybe KD's in there. That's six for me.
I would have
I
put Dirk in there if he would have won the ring in '06.
Dirk, yeah, Bacon. Dirk was underrated. His '06 run was good until the finals where he kind of choked and the team choked, but he redeemed himself in 2011 when he finally upset the Heat. So yeah, Dirk is in there. That's seven for me. I need to get
You
three
could do
more.
Jerry West.
Jerry West, that's eight. Even though he was 1-8 in the finals, but hey, he is the logo for Pete's sake. So Jerry West, that's number eight. Um,
You got
wow,
Dominique Wilkins.
Okay.
Dominic, big time.
Hmm. I'm gonna put three names out there, and shout out to Ron for mentioning this one. John Havlicek, who was an 8-time NBA champion, very underrated, and nobody really gives him his props for the
Dr.
career he
J.
had. Dr. J is another one. You have also Oscar Robertson because he also played two guard, and you also have to put in also Jerry West, and then you
Mhm.
have and then like you guys mentioned Dominique Wilkins, and Jay's
If you,
got Kevin Durant.
if you think about it, Dominic Wilkins was LeBron before LeBron. If you think about it, no,
I wouldn't say that.
I
I
wouldn't
mean,
say that.
you want to say that?
I
Okay,
would say he more of a D Wade.
you think so?
Yeah, I would say Dominique Wilkins more of a D Wade.
All right.
Let's see, Dominique Wilkins, very athletic, but I wouldn't say that he was versatile though when it comes to like because in terms of position. I mean, Dominique really wasn't in terms of pretty much played his primary position, which was small forward. Um, I wouldn't say that Dominique was because when you look at LeBron, he can play three positions. Dominique was really somebody who just really naturally played small forward. So I wouldn't put him in that in that kind of category. But
Oh, we forgot Kawhi Leonard.
The claw, yeah. Don't forget the claw. Two Finals
my,
MVPs and counting. Yeah.
But the only thing that hurts him is the numbers.
that's my issue with putting Kawhi Leonard on this list. It's the fact that he doesn't have the cumulative stats to be on this list. That's my issue with Kawhi Leonard. He's got some good hardware. Um, he's got good hardware. Wow. Okay, so Sly is saying Latrell Sprewell.
I don't
No,
know. But no way.
no.
That's
No way.
mm, Dominique Wilkins was kind of like a Vince Carter before Vince Carter.
That's a good comparison.
That's actually a
Yeah.
good comparison. Yeah, I would compare him more like Vince Carter just because of the fact that you're kind of looking at that Dr. J, Dominique, and Vince Carter because they all play forwards. I think Vince was primarily a two guard, but he did play some three, and then he went back to the two position. So Vince was mixed, but I think and Wade was kind of a more of a two guard version of Drexler, but just less of a 3-point shooter and more of a better defender than Clyde was.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. If Wade had a
Juanetta says
3-point shot, it'd be more
Bradley
dangerous.
Beal for sure. Juanetta says Bradley Beal reminds me more of Dominic Wilkins. Really?
Nah.
I mean, I don't think so, but okay. Okay, so we have MJ, Bird, Braun, that's three, Kobe four, Wade five, Havlicek six, Dr. J seven, Oscar eight, Dominique nine, Kevin Durant 10.
Well, I'll put Kobe over Braun, but yeah, that's just me. So yeah.
Same here.
Okay, if you're making this top 10 list right here of the players I just mentioned, where would you put them?
Sheesh. Dang. Okay. I got MJ at number one. Just wings, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
This is gonna be hard. MJ number one. Kobe number two. Um. Bird at number three. Braun at number four. Well, okay, let's see. I'm just thinking. So I have four. I said Wade, right? I never said Wade.
No.
Okay,
No.
I got Wade at number five. Um, Jerry West at number six. This I need to. Yeah, I'll make this quick. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just thinking. I'm sorry. This is tough. For the hell of it, Dr. J at number seven. Uh, who's my number eight? My number eight. I'll put the Big O at number eight. I need two more. Um, Clyde Drexler at number nine. And number 10, I'll just Dominique Wilkins at number 10.
Who you got, Tyree?
Ooh, this could be. I'm gonna be long as well. I would say the goat, MJ. Code two. I'm taking KD three, Bird four, LeBron five, six, Dr. J, seven. I'm taking Oscar Robertson. Eight. I'm taking Elgin Baylor.
Mm.
Mm.
Nine. I'm taking Jerry West, and 10. I'm taking Dirk.
Okay, good list.
And it's funny because Dirk started as small forward and then transitioned to power forward later on in his career. But he was a perimeter big his entire career until he learned how to post up. Started to create some different types of shots once he posted up against bigs and even smaller players who decided to guard him. Okay, top 10 wing players of all time. Very difficult for me. I got MJ as the greatest overall wing of all time. At number two, I have to put LeBron James in terms of his probably the most versatile and most athletic wing of all time. Uh, Kobe at three, as arguably being the most skilled wing of all time. Larry Bird, combination of skill, IQ, and shooting. In terms of that, at four, I got Wade at number five with his ability to defend. At number six, I have. This is difficult, but I'm going to give respect to this brother right here, John Havlicek. His career doesn't get mentioned enough with what a great of a player he was. Um, then you have Clyde Drexler at number seven. I have Jerry West at number eight. I have Elgin Baylor at number nine. And I'm going with the doctor at number 10, with an honorable mention to Oscar Robertson and then Dominique Wilkins coming after.
Hmm.
And also an honorable mention to Rick Barry. Thank you, Kareem, for reminding me of that as well. But he'll be a little bit after. So then let me ask you this. So now let's go through these guys. Who would you say was the best leader out of all these guys when it came to winning? In terms of leading their team when they have to do when remember what Tyree's argument is that wing players have more responsibility considering where they have to score and how much they have to do compared to center. So this is the argument. So which one of those guys on your list you would say makes the best case?
I gotta go Michael Jordan. You could make a case for Kobe Bryant, but I gotta go MJ because I know MJ was kind of a jerk off the court, but on the court he put his stamp on every team he played with. He played against. I'm sorry, Michael Jordan. He was not perfect. He had flaws, but Michael Jordan, to me, is the greatest leader in NBA history because he did he did the most with the least. All right, he had a good supporting cast. Don't get me wrong. The Bulls were a great team, but the Bulls were not as stacked talent wise as the teams he played up against in the NBA Finals. I'm just saying that Michael Jordan was the greatest leader because he helped go take the Bulls through adversity. All right. I hear people always say, "Oh, Michael Jordan's career was an asterisk," and I find that blasphemy. Michael Jordan, he was 1-9 without Pippen, and Scotty did help Jordan win, and that's true. But MJ helped improve the team and gave them their confidence so they could become better. Okay, I I I hate it when people call me a Michael Jordan nut hugger because I'm not. All right, I don't nut hug MJ, but I have MJ the best leader in NBA history because he played in a tough era in the '90s, going through the Knicks, the Heat, the Magic, the Jazz, um, the Celtics, the Pistons, the Suns, the Sonics, the Lakers, Blazers, etc. Going through those type of teams to win his 6 chips. And you could argue if MJ didn't retire in 1994 and 99, the Bulls could have won in 94 and it could have won in '99. Except I think the Spurs would have beat him in '99. That's just me. But Michael Jordan is the greatest leader ever, in my opinion, because he put his stamp in every series he played, and and his motor never stopped running. His confidence grew. He was never scared to fail. He was never scared to fail. He wanted to take chances, though. He had a great supporting cast, but the Bulls weren't super talented like people think they were. They were not a super team. People need to understand this. But Michael Jordan, to me, is the greatest leader ever.
Well, G Money, since you picked Black Jesus, I'm gonna go ahead and pick White Jesus, who is Mr. Larry Bird, who is the greatest leader to me in basketball of all time.
Mm.
Larry Bird was drafted and went to a I think 20
29 win team.
team in Boston and made them a 60-plus team. Also made Robert Parrish, who was a decent player, into an all-star. Won 3 MVPs back to back to back. Also won a 3-point contest going to the opposing team locker room, telling them he's going to win the championship and they better be ready. Giving you 26-8, 26-9 per career, putting Boston back on the map after the Bill Russell era.
Hmm.
I'm going with Mr. Larry Bird. That's the greatest leader in basketball history.
Okay, so G Money's got Michael Jordan, and you have Larry Bird as your leaders. Let's see. Who would I say? Man, I also am gonna have to go with White Jesus on this one, with Larry Legend, Larry Bird. Not the most athletic, not the greatest defender, but the artistry of skill, his IQ, and his leadership all combined. I feel like he was more impactful than when MJ first came in. And don't get me wrong, MJ was impactful because he did lead the Bulls to the playoffs in his first year. But think about this for a second. How about the fact that Larry Bird, the Celtics were a 29th win team the year before he got drafted. The minute he comes to the team as really their only addition, and they win 61 games the very first year, like that to me is crazy. That to me is most crazy. Well, I get what you're saying. Anybody likes sports, but we're just going off of wings. Isaiah was a point guard. If we were doing point guards, I should make the 10. I should do a 10 point guards list of all time. That's to really say. I mean, everybody most likely already know who they're gonna pick as their greatest, but and it's crazy because Larry Bird to me was just. It's crazy to me how Larry Bird was probably in the biggest of games, and you look at the players that he played against, even during his playoff runs. When you're talking about guys like Sidney Moncrief, and you're talking about Dr. J when they had the rivalry with the 76ers in the Eastern Conference Finals 3 years straight. You're talking about the Magic Johnson Lakers.
Hmm.
You got the Jordan Bulls. You faced the Atlanta Hawks a couple of times in the playoffs, and then you got the Detroit Pistons with Isaiah Thomas in them. I mean, when you really think about it, Larry Bird really faced the great of the greats in the 80s. Like, it's crazy to me. And it almost I'm amazed that he was 3-2 in the finals. Even with the front line that he played with Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish, but his combination of skill, leadership, and IQ, and his shooting ability, despite the fact not being the greatest defender, and not being athletic, and to kind of going back to what Tyree said, man, three-time MVP, 3 straight years in an era full of great players. He won the MVP 3 straight seasons. And at one time, he was considered the best player in the game. And yeah, even over Magic Johnson. It was from 87 on that Magic was considered the best player, on neck and neck with Michael Jordan. But Larry Bird was, and you talk about a killer. He was able to average 6 assists for his career in a system, 10 rebounds in a career at the small forward position in a system. So he was giving you the rebounds in a much more physical era. He was giving you the assists, you know, and had it not been for his injuries, yeah, Jordan is 0-6 against Larry Bird in the playoffs. That's correct. 2 sweeps. That's correct. Jordan is 0-6. I mean, how many guys can say that uh, Jordan may be 6-0 in the NBA Finals, but Larry Bird is 6-0 against Michael Jordan in the playoffs. Nobody can say that neither. Or the fact that Isaiah has a winning record against Jordan both in the regular season and in the postseason. But when it just comes to wings, he did have the Celtics on their heels, though. That's true. Jordan did have them on their heels.
Mm-hmm.
He did. But yeah, this is why I'm going with Isaiah Thomas. I mean, I'm sorry, not Isaiah Thomas. Larry Bird to me is probably the best leader out of anybody on this top 10 list. Okay, now my question is, in terms of greatest of all time, who in your opinion is the greatest scorer? If we're looking at their peaks,
Um, Greatest score when it comes to their peak. This is tough, man. This is really is. I thought Michael Jordan, but I'm gonna change my mind. I'm gonna go with Kobe Bryant.
Agree.
Kobe,
hmm,
Kobe, Kobe
interesting.
Bryant. Yeah, Kobe Bryant had a way of moves that it was so unbelievable. He could hit the 3 point shot from Curry Lane. He could go to the rim and he could posterize bigs. He can do the up and under. He had awesome footwork. He hit a fade. He hit crazy fadeaways. You could say the Black Mamba was MJ in steroids. You could say that. But to me, Kobe had more skills. That just means Kobe had more skills offensively. Kobe, you don't know, he is so unpredictable, man, when it comes to offense. Like, look at his amount of great scoring games. The 60-point game against the Jazz, the 81-point game against the Raptors, the 61-point game against the Knicks. I mean, the 38-point game four against the Jazz in 2008, 2010, I'm sorry, etc. Kobe Bryant, offensively, to me, is the greatest scorer ever. Kobe just was so unpredictable. He was Michael Jordan, but better offensively. He could hit the fadeaway, the three, the mid range. He could slam on your butt. He had awesome footwork. He could go through the teeth of the defense. Kobe Bryant, you don't know what you're gonna get. Kobe is so unpredictable, man. Offensively, I remember one game against the Dallas Mavericks that Mark Cuban said the Lakers should amnesty Kobe on that Sunday ABC game. Kobe Bryant had 38 points and hit multiple crazy jumpers from the half court, nearly half court, and then he hit a jump over Vince Carter at the end. Kobe Bryant to me is the greatest scorer ever.
Okay, Tyree, your thoughts?
G Money, I also agree with you. It's Kobe Bean Bryant, who was the greatest scorer ever. And people's gonna talk about his shooting percentage, but people, you have to realize Kobe wasn't a player to attack the rim 75% of the time, like MJ,
Mm-hmm.
LeBron, and them guys would do. That's why their shooting percentage is a lot higher because they attacked the rim majority of the time because they were so much more athletic. But when you say scoring, you're talking about perimeter, post,
Mm-hmm.
half court, like
Mm-hmm.
transition. It was nobody I think that was better than Kobe. And the reason why, and the reason his shooting percentage is not as great as Jordan's and LeBron's, because he took those shots and also took difficult shots. If Kobe decided to take 78% of his shots to the paint, his shooting percentage would be above 50%. But he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that type of player. He was just going to take the shot wherever he felt like taking it. And sometimes they were bad shots, and a lot of times they were good shots. But as far as scoring anywhere on the court, I would have to take Kobe being Bryant.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where I disagree with the both of you. And as much as I love Kobe, I know Kobe, if you look at his peak numbers, he's really a 27 to 28 points per game scorer when it comes to his first 2.5 seasons coming off the bench. And then you look at his last 3 years with injuries, those are some pretty ugly numbers. But I still have to go. This is pretty much, you're looking at arguably, when I look at this list, it's kind of like MJ and Larry Bird. And then if in a little bit of a sense you could take LeBron, but um, I mean, I'm going with MJ in terms of number one all time. Larry Bird and Bron are like kind of like right there, close sec. Actually, Kobe or Bron for me are tied for third. But the thing is, it does come down to efficiency. It, in one sense, it does, efficiency. You got to put that into context because with Kobe, he was not as athletically and physically gifted as a Jordan or LeBron. So that's one. So yeah, Kobe did have to rely more on skill. Kobe's really main issue was he took a lot of three pointers in his career, and one of the reasons that MJ was so efficient was not just only did Michael Jordan drive to the basket, but it was also because he took more mid-range shots. Yeah, he had a couple of seasons where MJ shot what 39, 40% from three. I think he did that twice in his career. But MJ even said it. His game is not predicated on waiting for the ball to make something happen. His game was when he had the ball in his hands, his job was to attack the basket and force the defense, to make a play and decide on how they were going to defend him. Obviously, he developed a fadeaway jump shot so that he would be able to escape from double teams so that he would be able to escape them sooner. Kareem does make a good point that Larry Bird shot 50%. I mean, Larry Bird is the founder of the 50-40-90 club. Um, and, with Kobe, I give him a lot of credit in this regard. For somebody to shoot 45% in his career on primarily perimeter jump shots, that's actually that's actually a testament to actually his efficiency though to be able to hit those difficult shots at a 45% clip. Had he taken less three pointers, he would be shooting anywhere from 48 to 50%. It's just Kobe
Mhm.
just shot a lot of threes, and Kobe was about taking a lot of difficult shots, which is what hurt his efficiency in terms of where you compare him to guys like Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. But when you put things into proper context, Kobe. That's why I said that for me, Kobe, even though he patterned his kind of like NBA life as Michael Jordan, there are actually some more differences than what people realize when it comes to Kobe. He wasn't as efficient as those guys, but that's because I wouldn't even say that much better in terms of 3-point shooting than even LeBron, honestly, because the percentages are not that crazy. It's only what a 1-2% difference, so it's really not that crazy. Um, but Jordan, the guy averaged 50% shooting while averaging 30 points per game, and Kobe's never had a season like that in his career. Now, I will say Kobe is a nuclear weapon. Like, not Jordan, not anybody in NBA history can get as hot as Kobe. I will say that. There's nobody like Kobe that can get hot. Um, Kareem says he also has Shaq's gravitational pull. I mean, part of it, but then it also kind of goes back to Tyree's argument because they both needed each other. Shaq didn't win until Kobe really developed into what he became too. Because I know people are going to say always that Shaq would have won championships with Kobe. I kind of would have had to question that if Kobe was not the dominant perimeter player he was. Because if you look at bigs like Portland, I don't think the Lakers make it to the finals if they face a team like the Blazers without a Kobe Bryant, or if they
Mhm.
face a Sacramento Kings team that didn't have to worry about Kobe giving them 25 to 30 points a game in a series. That's kind of tough. And the funny thing is, those teams pushed both of them to 7 games. So I mean, Kobe is definitely up there when it comes to unbelievable score in his prime at his peak. But what hurts Kobe is his efficiency compared to those guys. But like I said, I'm not here to disrespect Kobe. I'm here to also tell you that for him to shoot 45%, primarily taking jump shots, long jump shots, and hit them at a difficulty that he did in the era that he played in, I give him his props. But I think if he had taken less three pointers, his field goal percentage would be around where MJ and Larry Bird and LeBron is at. Because even Larry Bird didn't even take that many threes neither. Yeah, that's true. Kobe did have more open shots there. And also Shaq also got some easy baskets with Kobe's penetration as well. So that's why I said that it's a mutual partnership. But like I said, Kareem, you do have a point. So, you're definitely right. So that's for sure. All right. So G Money, you think Kobe was more consistent from downtown than LeBron was? I can't
Yeah,
let's all
I
right.
think so.
Okay, make your case on that one. I don't think so, but I think
I
it's
agree,
there.
G Money.
I agree. Okay, I'm not saying LeBron can't shoot. LeBron can shoot, but when you see Kobe shoot those long threes, you feel it's going in. Is he Steph Curry? Steph Curry? No, he's not. But I'm saying that Kobe, when you see him shoot those long 3 pointers, you see the elevation and you see the technique he puts in his shot, the arc he puts in his shot. LeBron, listen, many people will call me a hater for this. There are times when LeBron shoots like Draymond Green. at times from 3 point line. All right. Sometimes when LeBron takes threes, I feel it's not going in because he doesn't put arc into his shot. Kobe, he just puts more elevation, patience, and confidence in his 3 point shot. Again, is he better than Steph Curry from three? No, he's not. But I'm saying that Kobe, if you use the eye test tells you that Kobe is way more consistent than LeBron from downtown. I understand LeBron shot 40% from three in 2013. I get that. But he didn't take a whole lot of threes, though. If Kobe Bryant, if he took less 3 pointers, the way he shot the three pretty good, he could have shot 44% from downtown. I'm not saying he's Curry from three, he's not, but I'm saying that Kobe had more range than LeBron. Kobe had better elevation, better technique than LeBron. LeBron's great. Don't get me wrong. I like LeBron. I'm just saying that Kobe Bryant just had better skill, range, and long range shooting than LeBron. LeBron plays in streaks when it comes um to 3 point shooting. Like that one game versus the Spurs on a TNT game. That game, even though he was on fire, he was stat padding in that game. Kobe Bryant, every three he took, for the most part, you feel is going in. When LeBron takes those threes, I feel he's probably going to break them. LeBron is not a great shooter. Kobe is.
I agree, G Money. We also need to use when we see shooting percentage. We also have to put that in context as well.
Exactly.
People say, "Oh, Kobe shot the same percentage as MJ and LeBron." Yeah, but Kobe, you got to realize he also took twice as much. You
Mm-hmm.
taking twice as much when you go do something twice as many times as somebody else. Of course, your percentage is gonna be higher. I mean, lower. Like I tell somebody, if you go higher, if I'm talking to three women and you talking to one, and you was able to bag that one, and I was only to bag one out of three, I mean, our numbers look the same, but my percentages is lower
Mm-hmm.
because I took more opportunities. So that's what I'm saying with Kobe. When you look at their shot percentage, you have to look at how many attempts they took per game as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at shooting percentage, when LeBron played against the Spurs, Greg Popovich, his whole game plan was do not let him get to the lane and let him take those perimeter jump
That was
shots.
game seven. Yeah, game seven. I admit LeBron's jumper was falling in that game, but put Kobe Bryant in that game. The guy could have hit 8 to 9 or even 10 threes in that game. Trust me. LeBron, listen, LeBron could shoot. He could, but LeBron is not a good shooter. His jumper is funky at times. It's funky. All right, like for example, I think last year he shot like around like 30 something percent from the perimeter when he was outside the paint, which was ridiculous though, because you're a small forward compared to a shooting guard. Kobe Bryant, like I said, he had confidence, technique, patience in his shot, and like you said, Tyree, we got to look at percentages into context and detail. Kobe didn't. Kobe took a lot of 3 point shots. LeBron and MJ did. If Kobe took less 3 pointers, Kobe would have outshot those guys. So I'm just saying that if you're using the eye test and you're honest with yourself, Kobe is a way better 3 point shooter than LeBron James.
Mm, okay. Um, no, I mean, it's all good. I can understand that. Okay, so we're gonna go into this last question before we close out the show. I think that this was a difficult topic to argue and to try to debate, but I thought that this was a very interesting one. And shout out to Tyree for mentioning this idea. I thought this was great. Um, so now your final opinions on this. If you were to remake this top 10 list, would all those bigs be out of your top 10? If we're talking about the fact that wings have a more daring responsibility with the basketball and can do much more than bigs can do, if you were to restructure this top 10 list, or would you still have a selective amount of bigs in there? And if you don't think that the bigs deserve to be in there, who would be taken out if you were to restructure this list?
I would actually keep all of my bigs that I have in my top 10 in my top 10. I wouldn't have them rank as high as I would my dominant wing players. My dominant wing players would round out my top five, and then that's when I would start implementing the big man into the bottom tier of my top 10.
So before I get to G Money, then I have to ask you this question, Tyree. would Kareem be your greatest of all time if you're starting with five? If you're starting with five wings?
No, Kareem would not be my greatest of all time. Like I said, I just put Kareem there because of his accomplishments, more of his accomplishments than him being a dominant player and leading his team to championships. I'm just going off of the championships he's won in high school and in college and in the NBA.
Okay, so where would you put Kareem in your all-time top 10 list if you keep your bigs and you have your wings from 1 through 5? Where would you have Kareem from 6 to 10 then?
I got Kareem six.
Okay, G Money, what about you?
I do agree with Tyree for the most part. So if I had to do put a big man at 6 through 10, I would put Hakeem at number 6, Kareem at number 7. Excuse me, Shaq at number 7. My fault. Kareem at number 8. Um, Will at number 9. Tim Duncan at number 10.
Okay, if I was to restructure this list and I'm doing wings over, okay, if I'm doing wings over big men, that means that Kobe would have, it's crazy now because then that means Kobe would actually have to come in to the top 10. So that changes everything now. Kobe would be in the top 10. So then my question is, who gets left? That means that Magic Johnson most likely gets left out, and he would be an honorable mention if I was to restructure that list. So Magic would be out, and he would be at 11 along with Isaiah Thomas at 12, or they could share the 11th spot just because I feel like Isaiah did more with less, and Magic already played with talent from the minute he got into the league. But then it would be MJ, Bron, Kobe, Larry Bird, and who was my other wing that I had? Hold on, it was who were
You
the
had
four
D
wings that
Wade,
I had?
one of them.
Okay, hold on. If I redo my top 10, it's oh no, that's okay. That's the magic factor. Okay. Um. Yeah. No, Kareem. Yeah. It's funny. Kareem to Kareem, all-time leading scorer. All of the rest, they're trying to catch up. But because originally I had okay, so let me do my top 10 list again. So I had MJ, Kareem, Bill, then Magic and Bird. Then it's Duncan, Hakeem, Shaq, Braun, and Chamberlain. So actually, MJ is the only two guard that's in the top 10, and Magic Johnson is the only point guard that's in the top 10, while Larry Bird and LeBron are the only two forwards that I have in the top 10, and everybody else is centers, and Magic Johnson is the only point guard. Huh. Okay, so now if I have to restructure that list, then it's going to be MJ 1, Larry Bird 2, LeBron 3, Kobe 4. Damn, this is tough. Who can I put at that 5 spot? Who can I put at that 5 spot? Dang, so that's going to be between Wade and Drexler. I would have to go with Wade at the 5 spot, and then when you go from 6 to 10, it would be Kareem, Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon. Wow, damn, this is going to be tough now because I have a battle of Wilt, Shaq, and Bill Russell. Who do I leave out? Hmm. Shaq, Wilt, or Bill Russell? Bill Russell was the better winner. Shaq and Wilt were the more dominant. As much as I have respect for Bill Russell, I think Bill Russell would round out my top 10 and Wilt Chamberlain would be out as an honorable mention because he did not win as much, as dominant as he was. And Shaq will be in there just because of his ability to be dominant and win. So Shaq will be 9 and Bill Russell will round out my top 10. That's really difficult right there. Or what I could do is put in Bill and then take out Shaq. But what I would do is have Shaq and Bill to round out the top 10, and that would be my list. But that was actually really difficult. Whew, that was really hard. Okay, so G Money wants. Oh, okay, you think the 70? Okay, so G Money asked Tyree, "Who do you got winning the chip?" Since he wanted to switch the conversation. Oh, G Money, that G Money. Tyree's got the Clippers over the 76ers. So you think the Sixers are going to the finals?
Mm,
Yes, sir, I do.
Wow, interesting. Okay. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. But okay, I see the optimism. Got you. Okay. Yes, Kareem, Wilt does own the record books. That's true. He does own the record books, whereas Bill Russell doesn't. This is what makes it such a hard of an argument. And this is why I say
mhm.
that it's subjective because you could put Wilt in there because he owns the record books, but he didn't win. You could put Bill in there because he won championships, but he doesn't have the record books. This is why it makes it so subjective and so hard. And this is the discussion that we have. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you have, because personally, it is your list. So I'm gonna end this with this last question. Tyree and G Money,
Mhm.
should we reconsider this top 10 list now as five wings and five bigs? And instead of mostly bigs, a point guard and wing players. So now should the top 10 list should be the best five wings and the best five big men in NBA history.
I think we should just do a, like you said, top five wings, top five bigs, instead of just doing like point guards. I think that would just make it easier to help us judge and rank players better and understand more of their career rather than making a long top 10 list all the time, depending. So I think we should just do a top five wings, top five bigs.
I say we should do top five front court and top five back court,
Hmm.
and we now make our list going off of who's the best back court and front court players.
Wait, so if you're doing the top 10, that means that, um, so you're basically saying that the top five wings, if you were doing it the top five wings, that means that point guards wouldn't get involved. But since you're saying backcourt, that means that now point guards are being involved in this discussion. And then if you go to the bigs, so point guards, small forwards, and shooting guards could be in the top five. Is that
Right.
what I'm hearing from you? And then the bottom 10 would be power forwards and centers.
That's what you're hearing from me. You have the
Okay,
top five front court players and five back court players. That way,
interesting,
everybody has opportunity to be examined.
interesting.
But you can only
Okay,
have five front and five back court.
interesting. Okay, let me know what you guys think in the chat about that one. And shout out to Tomoko for being the 18th flight.
And the reason why I
What do
said
you?
five and five because there's only five positions on. I mean, basketball is a five-man team sport, so
Mhm.
five front court and five back court players.
Hmm.
Right. Very interesting take. And Juanetta is also with you, Tyree, on the Clippers winning. Um, Tomoko says, "Did you know there's a new anime studio in Japan for black people making anime about black actors? I did not know that. Do you know the name of it? And let me know in the chat as well. But what do you guys think in the chat? Like, do you guys honestly think that this top 10 list of all time should be reconstructed as the best five positions in basketball history in terms of the players that played it to be able to properly really judge the best players of all time? And what Tyree's mentioning is his criteria is the point guards to the small forwards. So point guards, shooting guards, and small forwards would round out the top five, and then the bottom five from 6 to 10 would be power forwards and centers. And his argument is, these are Tyree's words. His argument is wings guard 94 feet. He says they take responsibility, and they also on the offensive end are able to shoot from anywhere on the floor as compared to centers and power forwards are mostly used for packing the paint. And the reason that there's more big shooting threes is because of the spacing and the era that they play in. as compared to back in the day where they were camped in the paint. So that's Tyree's argument. What do you guys think in the comment section? And as people are answering that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close on this stream. I thought this was an excellent 2 hour and 9 minute plus conversation. I want to thank my guests, Tyree and G Money, for coming through and having this discussion with me. And salute to everybody in the chat. You guys have been wonderful for those. Thank you for those who showed up and showed out. And any last words for any one of you guys, so that we could close out the show.
I would just like to say thank you, Louis, for inviting me on your chat today, and I hope you and G Money the best.
Thank you, man. It's nice
All
meeting
right,
with
G
you.
Money.
Yeah, it's nice meeting with you, Tyree, for the first time. Hopefully, we can do more streams together, invite more of the panel. This is a great stream, like usual. Lewis knows his basketball, Tyree knows his ball. You know, can't wait for the season to come back July 31st. And, just stay safe.
All right, and according to Ron, he actually agrees with what you're saying, Tyree. He feels that if we were to judge a five backcourt and front court players top 10 all time list, he says it sounds pretty fair. So you might be onto something. I don't know if other people are going to agree with that, but you might have started something. And like I said, so once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Lewis Sports Network with another one. As again, this is your boy Lewis bringing you another live stream. I want to thank my two guests, Tyree and G Money, and thank you to Tyree for bringing up this topic. I thought it was very interesting. And again, if you guys haven't, make sure that you guys go smash the like on my new channel art. This is the channel art that I will be using from now on, where I talk about basketball, baseball, wrestling, UFC, mixed martial arts, and also on football. As you can see, Conor McGregor, Russell Wilson, Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of my all-time favorites, Derek Jeter, arguably my most favorite Yankee to ever watch play, and
Mhm.
obviously, in my opinion, the greatest to ever do it, MJ, Michael Jeffrey Jordan for basketball. So, thank you guys in the stream. Thank you to my special guests. We will be doing this more often as usual. Again, continue to spread awareness about the channel. Make sure you guys are sharing this on your social media outlets. And thank you everybody for coming from the Lewis Sports Network. As I always say, bless up. Take care, everybody. Live, laugh, love. See you guys. See you guys later. And we will be back tomorrow for another one. And as always, like, share, subscribe, and just let's keep the LSN movement moving. And shout out to my two LSN mob squads in G Money and Tyree. Thank you guys for being here. Have a wonderful night, everybody. I will see you guys on tomorrow for the next one.
You too. See you later, guys.
Y'all too.